The future of learning isn't about creating more courses. With the help of AI, it's about creating more impact.
Cutting out the mundane work and being able to focus on this more difficult thing out there. And I think like a lot of how we structure our development roadmap at Seven Taps is it's not doing the work for customers, but it's giving them the tools to have confidence in the stories that they tell.
That's Ezra Charm, co-founder at 7 Taps Microlearning. Ezra joins DaVinci's Jenny Fadulo, Beth Buchanan, and me to discuss how AI, microlearning, and smarter learning technology are helping L&D teams shift their focus from creating content to driving measurable performance. Next on Powered by Learning.
Powered by Learning is brought to you by DaVinci Interactive. DaVinci's approach to learning is grounded in 30 years of innovation and expertise. We use proven strategies and leading technology to develop solutions that empower learners to improve quality and boost performance. Learn more at davinci.com.
Joining me now are DaVinci's Jenny Fadulo and Beth Buchanan, and our guest Ezra Charm, founder of 7 Taps, a platform that helps organizations rethink how learning is created, delivered, and experienced. Over the past several years, DaVinci has worked with clients to incorporate 7 Taps into broader learning strategies, and we're really excited to continue growing that relationship as an official 7 Taps partner. We're also excited to welcome you, Ezra.
Thank you.
Hi, Ezra. Good to see you.
Welcome, Ezra.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us. Start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, 7 Taps, and your role at the company.
Of course. My name is Ezra Charm, and I'm one of the co-founders at 7 Taps Microlearning. We are a software company based in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I'm not far from there at the moment. What we offer is a software as a service application that helps our customers create fun and engaging content, and more importantly, deliver it and drive that engagement on the content. So it's not just creating content, it's really thinking about how they get the engagement they want from their audience so that they create great things, and then they can really figure out how they're going to get their audience to interact with it and trust it and really come back to it over and over again, as opposed to kind of see it as like a burden, and instead of it being training, it's more like learning. It's more something that helps them achieve.
Sounds like it could be a game changer, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
So, Ezra, I know I met you a little over 7 years ago. I think it was at the Learning and HR Tech Solutions Conference. I was immediately sold on the value. Couldn't wait to get back to the team and say, we should start using this. Our clients, this is going to bring such value. What stood out wasn't just how quickly we could develop content, but really its potential as a performance support tool. That's where I saw it immediately. Since then, I know, like Susan said, we've had the opportunity to work closely together. We've worked with a lot of clients to incorporate 7 Taps. As I've watched the platform grow, it seems like there's been an evolution, right? From simply creating content, creating microlearning, to really rethinking how learning is reaching people. Tell me from your perspective, how has that been, an intentional evolution, and how would you describe kind of your vision for 7 Taps today?
Yeah. So, there has been an evolution, but I think like if I ask our founder, Kate, what she intended when she first came up with the concepts of 7 Taps, she was always thinking past things like rapid authoring and really considering how an audience interacts with this content as opposed to just like has content created. I think part of our evolution is when we were first approaching the market, we didn't know who to talk to about how you deliver content, but we knew who to talk to about how you create content, because the learning and development space had a very clear, there's like instructional designers and learning and development people, and they cared very much about how content is created. And so rapid authoring became an easy conversation to have because we were good at that. I think we always really excelled around delivery. So the magic of 7 Taps for me is that a 7 Taps course can be accessed on any device at any time, and you don't have to pre-configure that device. It just instantly opens, whether it's an iPhone or a laptop or an Android device or anything, or an iPad. It'll work on all of them, and there's a uniform experience across all of them. And not only will it work, but you're able to track how learners are interacting and how they're progressing through this content. So that was always kind of her vision, but I think like we didn't know how to tell that story 5 years ago. The story we knew how to tell then, which was what the market was looking for, was how do you create something that's production ready really quickly, because that at the time that's what the market was looking for. I think like the market's changed quite a bit since then, and I think it's going to change. Like when I talk to customers now, they're still shopping for rapid authoring, but one of the questions I ask them is like, what do you think you're going to be shopping for in 3 years? Because like when you buy software and you make a commitment to a platform like 7 Taps, it shouldn't be like, oh yeah, this is going to help us for that. You should have some type of vision for it. Like, this might, like, over 3 years, how might this change? And I think, you know, content creation is something that's getting disrupted by AI. It's just, and it's because like, if it's good at one thing, it's good at spitting out a lot of words, right?
Mhm.
So like it's really good at that, and it's good at like, it's good at like, kind of like, I use different AI tools, and like my Claude knows how to talk like me at this point. It knows how to act like me because I've interacted with it so much. So like it can almost write better than I can. Um,
So this
you
could be
know,
Claude we're talking to right now, and we don't
it could
know,
be.
Ezra.
I can say potato if you want confirmation that I'm not an AI. So, but yeah, it's like it's really remarkable in that it can really kind of mimic a person, and over time really understand how that person communicates. I think there was like some comedian who once said that like he was working maybe on Saturday Night Live or something like that, and he said like their writers wrote him better than he wrote himself. And like I think in some ways, Claude can write me better than I can write myself. Like it knows so much about me just because I lean into the tool so much. And so I think like that's becoming more and more common, in that, these tools are great at writing natural language. That's what they're purposefully designed for. And a lot of learning and development comes from how do you communicate an idea in the most effective way possible. And effective is probably the fewest words possible, like using brevity and really being careful
Mhm.
with how you explain something. So, when I talk to customers or prospects, I ask them, like, what do you think is going to happen in the next 3 years? Do you think you're going to still look for rapid authoring, or do you think that there's something else in your stack that's missing that would help you really drive engagement across this content? And for the most part, I think people are starting to get it. They're starting to realize like they don't have a content problem as much as they have an engagement problem. Like
Mhm.
there's like a few reasons why training doesn't work. It's like it never reaches the people that it's supposed to reach. It doesn't actually change their behavior, or that it's just unengaging. Like those are kind of the problems, but it's really not the content doesn't exist. That's not really what our customers have a problem with. It's really like more of, are the people who it's supposed to help engaging with it, is it helping them so that they trust it, and is it accessible to them when they need it most? And so those are like the things that I know Kate, as our founder, really cares about the most, and that's really the path that we're going down in terms of how we
Mhm.
help our customers.
So is that part of the evolution? Is I think 5 years ago, you said when you kind of were founded, was the problem bringing content to market quicker, creating courses more quickly, and now the problem is how do we access more quickly or in different.
It's funny. Like, I think we always thought about the access. So, like, we always
Mhm.
thought about the delivery to learners, but I think that the market wasn't ready for that conversation. I think we were ahead of the market in that sense. I think at the
Mhm.
time, the market was very ready to have a conversation around rapid authoring. The AI tools were not as prolific as they are today. And a third of the magic that 7 Taps has is that you can create something production ready far faster than you could with some of the legacy authoring tools. And
Mhm.
it's a clear value that we have. And I think we leaned into that value to establish market presence and to develop early customers and to
Right.
develop a following around the product. We think about, part of my job is to think about sustainability for the company and for our team, and think about how do we build, like, even short of, I would love to build an iconic brand, that's obviously the goal, but short of that, how do you build something that has like a good product market fit and is protected from disruption, that
Mhm.
disruption that's out there and that's affecting a lot of authoring tools. And the answer there is not better authoring. It's really thinking about how you offer more than authoring. It's really
Mhm.
thinking about how, and I research this a lot on how companies build a moat around themselves to protect themselves from, particularly in the tech space where, companies are being disrupted by AI. That's
Mhm.
absolutely true. And the
Mhm.
way you do it is you find ways to offer value where, outside of just like the base layer of rapid authoring, you think about how you become part of the company's delivery infrastructure, so that they're using you for more than rapid authoring. They're also using you to get these messages to the learners, because that's much harder to do with some of these AI tools. And then also how you help them measure the impact that this stuff is having,
Mhm.
because that's, again, harder for AI tools to quantify. And I think, like, also, it's very healthy for learning and development to move outside of the comfort zone of creating great content and really owning accountability for how this impacts an organization and how an organization might measure the impact of this. I'm very optimistic about the world of learning and development. I think a lot of people aren't right now. When I like go on LinkedIn, there's like a lot of, kind of messaging around, oh my God, it's all being disrupted by AI. But I don't really have that view. I think it opens up so much more capability for learning and development teams to do things bigger than create great courses. So creating great courses, it's just like the base layer. It's like you create great courses, but your intention is not just to create a great course. Your intention is to change the behavior of an organization,
Mhm.
have an
Yeah.
impact. And I think for many years it was measured on how great a course was and how engaging it might be. And now I think with tools kind of making great courses easier to create, it now opens up doors to do things like, how do we make sure that it drives engagement, and how do we measure the impact that a great course has?
I agree. It makes those, Bloom's taxonomy, the lower level learning objectives, easy to create. So now we as instructional designers can really get into those higher level learning objectives that truly impact and tie to performance outcomes. So that's where the fun is, right? That's why we're in the profession, is to really impact performance. So I agree. It's disruptive, but I think there's so much potential there.
Isn't just where the fun is. That's where the job security is. Like, if
Yeah.
you don't have job security if you create a great course. You have job security if you can
If you
prove
change
the impact
performance.
of the great course. So
Yep.
to
Yep.
me, it's very exciting.
Yeah. So, Ezra, you've talked about the LMS-less learner. That's a tongue twister. So, what does that mean, and why is it such an important concept for learning professionals to understand today?
I think when you buy like a shiny LMS as a learning and development professional, you get very excited about this piece of software and you pour your heart and soul into it, and you forget that you're the only person in the organization that cares that much. You forget that, and it's easy to forget that. I'm a software person. I've been my whole career, and I know you can really love a tool, right? And then I jokingly say to our some customers that, your learners are not waking up in the morning excited to go log into an LMS, and it's a sad reality. Like, they're just not. It's hard to get somebody excited to go log into an LMS. And so I think that's one thing to consider, is how do you engage people, how do you engage with people without forcing them to do things in order to engage with you?
Hmm.
So how do you kind of meet them where they are? And then the other thing is, like, the LMS is really nicely designed for somebody that sits in front of a desk and that has some time blocking ability to go and log into an LMS. And in the actual world, That's a very small percentage of people. Like most of us don't have jobs like that. Most of us,
Mhm.
run around like crazy, and we don't have the time and space to go log into an LMS to continue our development. And we're either a field salesperson or we're a deskless worker that never sits in front of a computer. And how do you reach that person? And I know for some of our early customers, the answer was, well, a couple of times a year, we pull them all into an office and force them to sit in front of a computer. I think for the average learner, if you're going to tell them, like, okay, you have to go and take training on this and this day, and you have to be in this place to take training, they're approaching it with half their brain shut off. And because it's like
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
day where they don't have to be working and on, and so they're
Mhm.
they're not working and they're kind of off. I don't know if it's universally true. It's just like kind of my feelings. And I think, like, for all those people, like, it's like you're reaching them, but you're not reaching them at the ideal moment. You're not
Mhm.
reaching them
Mm.
when this learning is actually needing to be applied.
Yeah,
And they have
makes
to
sense.
remember this stuff and then go back to their job and apply it. And so there's a big disconnect there. And I think we could do better.
Yeah.
So like, part of our message and market is that we help you reach all the people that your LMS doesn't. And whether they have a login or not, maybe they have a login and maybe they haven't logged in since those 2 weeks of onboarding that they did 2 years ago, which is often the case. And so, like, kind of meeting them where they are is part of our mission as a company.
Love it. So, as we've partnered with clients to use Seven Taps as part of broader learning and performance support solutions, Beth has had a front row seat to a lot of those implementations. Beth, I'd love to bring you into the conversation.
Thank you. Well, I keep thinking about engagement because that is like core to any kind of learning, LMS or a different platform. And you've made the argument that the LMS less learner needs to be engaged in sort of a different way. So, why is Seven Tap so engaging? Can make the case for us as to how this really amps up the engagement. And I know that you've mentioned before the sort of intersection with marketing and learning, and I'd be curious to hear that brought into the point as well.
Absolutely. This is, again, I have a ton of respect for Kate, and it was really something that she saw, which was the way people learn is changing. And it's still changing. I know for myself, like, when I go to learn something, I don't sit myself in front of a laptop, and I don't go I don't go and pick up a world book. Like, that's not what you do anymore, right? Like, when I was a
Mhm.
kid,
Oh,
that's what we did. Like,
Yeah.
it was
yeah,
We
first picking
did.
up a world book, and
that's
then
so
it
funny.
became, and like, now if you pick up a world book, I think, like, everything's really out of date and wrong, which is kind of interesting,
Yeah.
because the world, evolves quickly, and we learn things, and we learn, and, like, the realities change a little and the world changes. So now, when you ask most people how they learn, they pick up this device. This is the
Mhm.
device that people are learning on,
the,
and
the
especially for
phone.
people,
It's the
the phone.
phone. Yeah.
Yeah, and for people entering the workforce, I forget the exact stat, but for teenagers today, something like, it's a crazy number, like 87% of American teenagers consider this their primary device, the thing that they lean into the most. The other
Mhm.
thing that we kind of saw was that when people are doom scrolling through social media, they're not just doom scrolling, they're learning.
We're
That's what you're
learning.
doing. You're like,
Mhm.
my algorithm is pretty tuned into, like, fun hikes around California right now, because that's what I've been doing for the past few months. And I'm learning about all of these opportunities to go hiking in different national parks, because that's what I care about. And that's what I'm doing. Like, when I'm scrolling through there and kind of shutting off my brain, I'm kind of cultivating ideas in my mind about experiences I might want to go and do. I don't think we give that. I don't think the industry was giving that enough credit. And I think Kate really saw that there was a fundamental change happening. I think if you look at the way Seven Taps functions, it taps into a lot of that behavior that people were doing already. And I think
Mhm.
that's where we were really ahead of the curve, is like, she really did a lot of analysis on how people were acting on a device like a phone, and how it became so, like, I could sit there and scroll through hikes, and like 2 hours will go by like this. Like, it just happens so quickly. And
Mhm.
I think, like, there's some magic there when you can say, like, okay, it's used for a lot of brain rot, but how do we kind of tap into some of that, like, that kind of I don't even know what to call it, just like this behavior that people have, and try and
Mhm.
use it to drive a better outcome. And I think that's really part of our mission is to figure out how people are learning and what are the behaviors that people feel comfortable with. And the more a learner or an audience feels comfortable with learning, like I can tell you, like if you go log into an LMS and you try and take some of these complex courses, it's not that comfortable. And I don't know that
Mhm.
it taps into desirable difficulties as much as it taps into low engagement and like maybe not the right format for the way people learn today. And she saw that we could do a lot better. She saw that there was an opportunity to leverage that format for good instead of just for brain rot. And I think she really nailed that point.
I have to ask you because you've just been saying the word taps a lot in the last answer. This is a great opportunity to have you share what 7 taps means. I think people would be interested in understanding that.
Absolutely. So part of our message to the market is that if you can get a message across in a minute, and you can get the same message across in 30 minutes, you should do it in a minute, right? You should really like kind of deliver one message and deliver it well. And the name Seven Taps comes from cognitive overload happening at 5 to 7 pieces of information. So when you sit somebody through an hour long e learning or an hour long webinar, the expectation is that they'll remember 5 to 7 different points. And that's just
Mhm.
because that's the way we all function. Maybe some people will remember a few more points, but when actually like a month later and they go to apply it, you could feel comfortable that they're going to remember 5 to 7 different pieces of information that you got across. And so if you're dumping 50 different things that people need to know in one e-learning, you're really selling yourself short and you're selling them short. It's doing everyone a disservice. And the name, that's where kind of the name Seven Taps comes from. Like if
Yeah, so
you can't do it in 7 taps, like you just like you're just overwhelming people.
right, right.
That's
So that
great.
sounds like a real tie to cognitive load theory, right? So how much when you were creating did you tie was science influencing the original design? Was it
It's very influenced. We were very fortunate in that like our early prototypes, we were giving away 7 taps for free for about a year or year and a half before we monetized the product at all. And we attracted some really interesting attention, including a researcher at University of Toronto who ended up writing a whole thesis and a whole bunch of research around what we were doing and kind of like this intersection between adult learning and corporate learning tools and how you kind of break out of that mold. And so there's a lot of research that she's written on our site. Her name is Nidhi, and we have a lot of respect for her. And then there have been a few others people that have popped up who, and but I can tell you, like Kate is, she spent her entire career kind of in learning and development.
Mhm.
I was always like a software person. That's the part I helped with. Although I've learned an awful lot about learning and development over the past few years, and I think I have a background in marketing, which kind of helps a lot because it really applies to adult learning really nicely. I can tell you, like, she really poured her heart and soul into figuring this out and making sure that
Mhm.
it was founded in not just scientific theory, but like scientific fact. I mean,
Yep.
a lot of 7 taps has to do with spaced repetition and just
Yeah.
remembering that you can deliver a message really well once, but if you do it 3 times and you do it in a way that's respectful of an adult learner so that you're
Mhm.
not asking them to take the same course 3 times until they quiz
Mhm.
out on the question properly, but like kind of reframing things, giving them scenarios to apply, and really doing it in a way that's respectful of their time so that they trust it and so that they'll keep coming back to it. It's going to become much stickier. And I think like spaced repetition and addressing cognitive overload, these are not theories, these are facts. Like this is
Mhm.
the way
Yeah.
the adult brain works. And we really spent a lot of time applying that in the product and thinking about how we kind of apply these principles and make sure that our customers can use this and as foundational in how they create learning.
One thing I've been thinking about as you've been talking, some of the best ideas seem so obvious once they're implemented, do you know what I mean? Like this idea of the cognitive overload and the simplification, and it's sort of this almost proof of concept of how great of an idea it is.
It's very funny because like after we built these first prototypes, some people like were making, and they still do, like make like quick Claude code copies of 7 taps. And what they're telling us is your great idea is our idea, right? So it exactly happens like that because it is obvious, but it wasn't obvious 5 years ago. And there were no,
Right, and it's
I can,
not used in that way,
yeah,
in an
there were
obvious way,
no
right? Like, that's
products
not the model.
in the market five
Yeah.
years ago that were kind of
Mhm.
thinking about, this overlap between how adults are changing the way they learn and how we might and how we might kind of tap into
Tap
that.
into
And
it, yeah.
Well, one thing that does exist is most corporations, larger companies, even smaller companies, they do have their learning ecosystems in place, right? So I would imagine you're talking with a lot of clients who don't necessarily want to give up their job aids and their LMS and their courses and this body of work that they've created to do their training, but they might have a place for 7 taps anyway, or so how do you sort of direct clients about how 7 taps sort of fits into that ecosystem?
Yeah, and the answer is carefully, I think. One of the things we never say is everything you're doing is wrong, and we don't feel that way. Like
Right.
it's not like every company needs a healthy learning ecosystem, and it's more than one product. One of the things that I notice in this industry in particular is that there's very little collaboration or ecosystem around, or like that companies have developed around their technologies, and they don't bring other people into their ecosystem well, and they don't, like, we have this great partnership building with DaVinci, and I think like the industry has been kind of bad at that. I come from a cybersecurity data protection market where we had go to market efforts with our primary competitors because we were solving problems together even though we had our own self-interest, and I think that's much healthier for an industry. And so what we have always been very careful about is how do we play nicely with others, how do we make this plug into a learning tech stack that's been around and being built on for 20 years and still add additional value that maybe they're not getting out of the tools that they're getting today, and how do we do it in a way that's really respectful of the space. I don't think anybody's doing anything wrong for the past 10 years. I think there's opportunities to kind of up level, and that's
Mhm.
that's always the tool we want to be. So we work nicely inside an LMS. You can deploy 7 taps courses as SCORM if you want to. We can
Mhm.
send data to an LRS. You can think about how, if you have an existing e-learning, you use 7 taps for like a reinforcement campaign so that it's
Mhm.
not just a one
Mhm.
and done. And we really try to figure out a space for ourselves where it made sense for a company to add an additional tool because they saw additional value without having to tear anything apart. We put a lot of effort into that, into becoming, an ecosystem player. And we just launched this learning and development coalition with a bunch of other technology partners so that customers can see how 5 different products in this space might help them achieve a better result and help them, evaluate 5 different tools that are all complementary, and really trying to build ecosystem in the learning and development space because I think it's really healthy, not just for us personally, but for the space as a whole to have technologies that interact well with each other and that you can really round out what you're doing with a whole bunch of different tools. If you're building a software tool that kind of answers all the problems, everything you're doing is a quarter or halfway there. You're not tackling any one individual problem. And so, we are a niche player. We do one thing, we do it really, really well, but we don't answer all the problems, and
Mhm.
we're not the answer to all of the gaps learning and development has. I think we really kind of do what we do and we do it well, and we also really fit in nicely with a good L&D tech stack.
Mhm.
And when 7 taps is being used effectively in an organization within the ecosystem, what kind of indicators are you seeing that is working? Like the engagement is there, the behavior change is happening. Do you have any indicators you would share with our listeners that, this is really making a difference?
Yeah, I think, like, we're in this transformational space where we want people to be very proud of the work that they're doing. And we want people to tell amazing stories about the work that they're doing. And so one of the things that we've done really nicely is we have this micro learning conference that we run quarterly, where we give our customers kind of a platform to share their successes with micro learning and 7 taps in general and create discussion around that. It's a virtual conference, and we have three different customers that join us. Like the last conference, we had Best Friends Animal Society and Advent Health and Philips Healthcare, and they were talking. The whole conference was about saving people and puppies with microlearning. So I think like just
Doesn't get any better than that, right?
it really
Yeah.
doesn't. It just tugs at all, you know.
Oh.
You can save cats with it too. So like whether you like dogs or cats, it's and so like these are amazing organizations, all of them, and they're all thinking about how they may have like kind of broken out of the mold of we've always done it this way to introduce something new to drive a better result. And one of the things our customer success team is incredibly good at is figuring out what is the status quo with our customers? Like, what does it look like today if they continue doing what they're doing? And then what if they could layer in something else? How would they measure it? And how would they measure whether it's successful or not? And helping our customers think about that as opposed to just thinking about, rapid creation or content. Like,
Mhm.
how do you measure whether this had an impact? And then once they're able to tell a story about that, give them a space to go brag about it on Microlearning Conf, because that really kind of shows the impact, and it shows how they achieved it and what hurdles they had to overcome, like whether it was integrating this into their tech stack or getting executive buy-in, or how they changed the way they delivered, and instead of pulling people back into an LMS, they just start texting learners because learners are on their phones. And I think like all of that helps us tell our story
Hmm.
better, and it really helps our customers tell the story of their success, because it's their success. We're a tool that they're using, but it's their
Mhm.
success.
So Ezra, in this moment of disruption, right? It's an opportunity for organizations to really rethink training, performance support, knowledge sharing. Knowing that, what excites you the most about where we're headed, where learning technology is headed in the next few years?
I think what excites me the most is that the role of people is becoming more and more important.
Por-
I don't know why also something that I don't know why it wasn't this way always. Like, companies will invest so much money into marketing to attract one additional new customer, but only a fraction of that to elevate one additional salesperson, where one additional salesperson can have a much bigger impact than one additional customer. So I think if you compare marketing budgets and learning and development budgets, there's some real misalignment there. And I think part of it is that marketing was better at attribution and saying like, well, you gave me this money and I put it to work and we got these customers, where learning and development has traditionally not been so good at that. And I think that's what excites me the most. I think the role of people is becoming more and more important. The role of people who are knowledgeable and trustworthy is going to become more and more important. And I think that having a team that's well aligned is going to become more important than ever. And I think that's something that a lot of people might overlook. And they might say, like, well, course creation is becoming so easy, so I'm in deep trouble, when it's just like learning and development is going to move from building onboarding programs to figuring out how this top seller in an organization is so successful, and how do you bleed that out across the board, and how do you get more people aligned that same way. I don't have this doom and gloom look of the world. I think I
Mhm.
have an optimistic view. I also went through like a whole bunch of change in my own career. So I've been a marketer my whole life, and I started off as a pixel pusher, where, like all other marketers, where before the days of marketing automation and WYSIWYG tools and all that stuff, we were pixel pushers and we couldn't measure anything. And so we also, marketers got fired quickly, and it was like there was not a lot of job security. But then tools helped us attribute this better and really helped us understand the impact that we were having, and helped us tell a better story about our impact, and also cut out a lot of the mundane work. So like the
Mhm.
mundane work might be the work that you do into like polishing a course so that it's production ready, and maybe you can do that much quicker, and that opens up space to do the work that we talked about, which is the difficult work, the work that AI can't do, which is what is the impact this is having, and how
Mhm.
do we drive that impact organization wide. And I think as soon as you unlock that, learning and development moves from a cost center to a profit center. And I think it's there. And that's what excites me the most, is that right now, if you ask any executive, is learning and development, is your L&D team a cost center or a profit center? They're all going to tell you it's a cost center. And that's why, when a company stops hiring, they cut learning and development
Learning from
first.
it. Yep.
But I think that there's an opportunity to switch that conversation and say, like, yeah, like that's, and very similar to the path that marketing took, where it moved from a cost center to a profit center. And it really was some technologies that drove this change, that some companies that cared enough to turn their customers into the champion, into the hero, right? So like, it's that hero's journey that kind of happened. And I went through that myself personally, where I learned how to use tools like Google Analytics and marketing automation tools like Eloqua and Marketo and others to really figure out how marketing was driving this bigger impact in an organization. And to me, like, if learning and development teams tackle that, they are the next heroes within every organization. And the time is now for that, because people are the most important asset any company has.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I mean, if you're familiar with Jim Collins and the hedgehog concept, so our hedgehog at Da Vinci is, human-centered learning. We're doubling down on that, right? We're more important. The learner is more important than ever. These tools are going to help us get better, but it's the human right at the center of it.
Cutting out the mundane work and being able to focus on this more difficult thing out there. And I think, like, a lot of how we structure our development roadmap at 7TAPS is, it's not doing the work for customers, but it's giving them the tools to have confidence in the stories that they tell. And I mentioned I come from marketing, and a lot of, like, what marketing attribution is, it's a story that you're telling. It's not a reality. Like, all attribution models, they're models, which means it definitely could be true, right? But is it the truth? No, it's a model. It definitely could be true. And I think learning and development needs more stories that definitely could be true, and they need the space to tell those stories. And I think, like, that's the position we're in right now.
Well, you're definitely doing that. And I'm hearing you all talk about the disruption. And I think sometimes disruptions are good. I think this is a positive disruption for learning and development. And certainly, Ezra, you and 7TAPS are playing an important part in that. And we're glad to be partnering with you. And we're also excited that you took the time to talk with us today and share a little bit more about 7TAPS with our listeners. So thank you.
Thrilled to be
thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
My thanks to Da Vinci's Jenny Fedullo and Beth Buchanan, and to our guest and partner, Ezra Charm from 7TAPS. If you have ideas for a topic or guest, please reach out to us at poweredbylearning@davinci.com. And don't forget that you can subscribe to Powered by Learning wherever you listen to your podcasts.